The crypto market has been quite down and very boring. Realize that this is part of what drives out most people from the crypto space, and they turn very bearish, and that is the sentiment right now, is bearish right before things go crazy. And this happens over and over and over again. And you see why so many people don't make it through the crypto cycles. Now, if this is your first 4-year cycle, you've not been at this point before, and this is new. And you're looking around and you're hearing so much FUD and uncertainty from other people. Realize that this is normal. And you're learning so much right now. Now, hopefully you're taking smart actions, because smart actions are going to be very rewarded by the market. It is Wednesday today. And as you know, on Wednesdays, we have Paul from Definity joining us. And what's great about Paul is he's been doing price analysis for 30 years. So he has some really good insights on what's showing up in the charts, even if you're not feeling it. So join us and welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realize that there is massive potential for life-changing gains over a bigger period, and 4 to 8 years is really the right expectations, and you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family, the Rainmaker family. Now, I created this channel because I was once new to crypto 7 years ago, and back then I was looking for a crypto channel and a group that understood crypto as an investment, filtered through the 90% of crap that was out there, and shared with me the projects that were good and made an analysis as to why they thought they were good. I didn't really find what I was looking for. So we created that. And I say we created that because it's not just me anymore. It's a family of rainmakers. And you'll see them here in the chat. You will see them, some of them, in our free Telegram group. And the link to that is below. Realize that that is free. We also have a bunch of scammers and bots that join all the time, trying to get you to click on some link. We do have a protected private Patreon group that gives you access to our private Discord. And that is where the very best discussions and best info is. And there are other major benefits too, but you will have to join us to find out. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. I made millions of dollars by investing during the bear market of 2019 through 2020. And when things went crazy in 2021, I was able to reap those rewards. I think we're setting up for that again. So hopefully you're taking some smart actions, because if so, this ride is going to be amazing. Now, it's Wednesday. Make it rain on that like button. Strap in for this show and help me welcome Paul from Definity.
Hey guys, great to be here as always. And, you know, I'm feeling extremely bullish on the markets, extremely bullish on Definity. Lots of exciting things going on here, but there are exciting things going on elsewhere. It's just that everyone's on holiday. So what can you do? But we're in great company here with you and everyone else who's going to come in on the chat. And yeah, so just it's a great time to be in the market, but it doesn't look like it, does it? But it really is.
That's what's funny, right? So I'm hearing a lot of capitulation from people that have been holding on with their claws and like, oh, and they're finally washing out, and they don't realize like that is the end signal of the down market, that they are capitulating, and they're capitulating on projects that they believed in for 2 and 3 years. And they're just washing out because sentiment is bearish and it's just felt so down for so long, and prices haven't turned around. And that is exactly what bottoms feel like. And what's interesting is the word feel, because our feelings is usually what crushes our financial gains. Because the reason why so many people do so badly is they do go off of feelings, and most people do. And the smart money counter trades those feelings. Paul, you said something. You said, gosh, it's an exciting time. I would love for you to share what you're seeing in the charts, what you're seeing in general that has you so excited.
Sure. I mean, just for a kickoff, we've got some great asset markets that are trending higher. in terms of the equity markets, and broadly, interest rates seem to be in the US, the biggest, most important market out there, on a downward trajectory. And we're in an election year. And it's funny, no matter who wins, whether it's Trump and his pro-crypto stance, or whether it's Kamala Harris, whatever your political views are, I think the market will always end up doing what it wants to do. If it is Trump, I think it will go crazy. And if it's Kamala Harris, it will still go crazy, but perhaps by not as much initially. But these long-term trends will always end up in the same place. The reason why I'm mentioning that now is because we started talking about the halving and the ETF of Bitcoin a few months before, around this time. And that was when there was still some sort of doubt about what would happen. And the trend was up. The trend was really strong into that move. Now, everyone's on holiday because it's the August period, as you know. I'm sorry, I've said that a few times, but it really is, volume-wise, there's not much going on, and there's not much to read into the markets. But we have to be prepared for certain things to break out in this quiet market, because when they do, it's hard to jump on things once they've moved really quickly. So it's great that you're here every week. It's great that you keep an eye on the market. Even when you're on holiday, you should still do that, because you will get a lead up to the big breakout in Bitcoin, ETH, and all the other altcoins. What's also interesting is some of the picks that you've just given me for this week are looking really interesting. Like some are outperforming greatly, and one looks like it's about to go. So sometimes being on holiday means that you're going to miss some of these potentially fantastic breakouts. But we had the yen carry trade scare a few weeks back. That's starting to fade off. The question there was, and the big question was this a collapse? Was this something that we needed to sell into because we're into a big bear market and the start of a GFC part 2, from 2008? Or was it, as we said, a buying opportunity and a kind of a one-off spike that would be quickly reversed? Now, it looks like in all assets that the latter is the case. And, there's still some nervousness around, but other than that, looks like the trends are properly in place. And that actually, for me, is a really fantastic signal that things are going to go much higher. Now, if you're watching the commodity spaces, you'll see that gold has gone into a new high. So the dollar's weakening there. The dollar's weakening, gold's strengthening, whichever way you want to have a look at it, whichever angle you want to take. It's still, assets are rallying against the US dollar. And just go back full circle about the dollar story, you can argue things both ways. You see, if Kamala Harris gets in, the dollar might go down a hell of a lot. And if it goes down a lot through perhaps, and this isn't a political view I'm giving you here, this is just how the market might see it, a left-leaning, another 4 years of left-leaning policy might mean that the dollar will weaken because the market won't like that. Therefore, the dollar goes down. But the dollar going down will create an asset bubble and further push crypto higher, give you more excuse to get in. And if Trump gets in, perhaps the market will treat that as a positive crypto story. So it is, sometimes it looks like heads you win, tails you win. This could be the case going forward. It could be the case. Now, perhaps you'll accuse me of painting blue sky and maybe being overly bullish, but I'm not really known for that. I'm known for trying to be realistic about what's coming ahead. But the dollar's definitely weakening, and I think that when people look at the political side and they say, "Oh, it would be a bad thing if Kamala Harris gets in for the markets, and it'll be a good thing if Trump gets in," it might just be good if both of them get in, because that's the way the markets are. But obviously, we're looking at probabilities, and the probabilities are still that on this reaction test, i.e. when there was massive selling in August and a panic, people came in and they bought. And that's telling me that there's more to go in this bull market. We just need to be patient. And, everyone who's watching a show like this and sticking with it, when admittedly things have been quiet, you're the real, troopers in this, and hopefully you'll reap the rewards, because we will have easier times coming to predict the markets. We go through these phases where things are hard, and we had that like 18 months ago when everything was down and it was really difficult to be bullish, and everyone again was talking about how it's time to exit crypto. And I've said many times, I just still can't get it's good that sentiment is like this, because it tells me it's not the top. But it's interesting that everything is actually doing so very well, and yet people are still quite down on crypto. It's like things haven't gone anywhere really. They're still near the highs. So quite why they're justifying or saying it's all over, I just don't know. I don't know why they're saying that, but it's good that they're saying it, because I think it's misplaced.
Yeah, it's an emotional thing, right? Their feelings, because when you look at the chart of Bitcoin, you can see that it's up from as low as 14,000, it hit 75,000, now it's bouncing around 55 to 60,000. It's still massively up, but it feels like nothing is going on. And it feels like there's no action going on. So one of the challenges is in crypto, people get addicted to some kind of dopamine of something having some kind of action. And so at least people were able to watch meme coins, which were going crazy, but narratives never last. And then meme coins slowed down and many of them tanked. And so then it feels like nothing's going on. And all that's really happening is the narrative is going to shift to a different narrative. Now, perhaps on what we're going to be looking at today, maybe there's some clues into which narrative is coming. We'll take a look at one of the bigger ones that has really made a move, and it's the leading token in a specific narrative. We'll take a look at that. We are live, by the way, so good morning, Kevin from Lakeland, Florida. Bro is joining us. Congrats on the Jersey license, Paul, which was officially announced for Definity. So yeah, Definity's product is crushing it. We did an interview the other day with Chris, and Chris from Definity will go much more, if you watch that interview, into what Definity is doing and what news there is than what Paul will generally give us as he joins us and gives us some price analysis. Sour D says, morning rain and Paul. And Bill Gardner with the super chat. Thank you. Bill Gardner says legends. Well, thank you. Are we talking OMI today, Rain? We can. Good evening, NL. Perfect. All right. Well, let's pull up the charts, Paul. What are you tracking and what are you looking at?
Right, let's have a look. Let's get over to the charts. Well, start off with, as you know, equity markets. This is the Dow Jones. We've had a little wobble. As they say, we bought into that wobble, or the market bought into the wobble, and still an upward trend. Nothing more to see there. If we look at the NASDAQ, yes, it had a big pullback, but my goodness, how quickly did that recover? Sure, we could be in a consolidation there, but ultimately that trend is still up. That's looking good. S&P 500 nearly back at all-time highs. Now, come on, guys, this is like an upward trend, and the dollar hasn't even started moving yet. So Russell 2000, this is small cap stocks. I had a chat with an asset manager who was, very bearish, and I'm like, well, yes, this has gone up, and it did come down, but it's moving back up again. And this technically, to me, is making a really interesting setup. I've got this green line here of 2,368, and this all-time, is it an all-time high? Yeah, it could be. Yeah, all-time high just above that. But either way, this is a significant high, and it's working towards it, which is a much more important signal than it moving down. Look, I would argue that if we were testing these levels and moving lower, then the bearish case would be justified. But I don't see a bearish case here. I can't call a bearish case because the market is going up. Now that can change, but we're taking probabilities here. The VIX index, so that big spike on the panic, it's come all the way back down again. Now a little rebound is to be expected, and we talked about that last week. So it's had a little retracement, because once the market gathers its footing and goes, right, they've panicked, there's some people who've taken positions against that, and they want to bank those profits, and that will swing the market back. It will just retrace it slightly, and that's what's going on there. It's effectively profit taking on short-term positions that's causing this bounce. But ultimately, I think they should stay in a very stable range and maybe even go back, much lower. Now, in terms of other asset markets, we've got gold. Look at this, fantastic upward trend, all-time highs, off we go. Silver is performing well. It's still underperforming gold, and I thought it would catch up. Hasn't quite done that, but okay, we're still in an upward trend. It's still showing signs of weakness. And some of the other commodities, the precious metals, are in a consolidation, to be fair, but I think they're all going to synchronize higher. We've got copper, which has been traded into a fantastic high, which was really significant. I thought it would come into a little bit of a retracement. That retracement was a bit bigger than I expected, but it's still within the parameters of the bullish trend. And it's now rebounding. It reacted on a really important support point. Now, the reason why copper is really important is because it's used in industries, for houses, it's used in electric cars, and all sorts of places. So the fact that copper is holding, going up or in an upward trend is a good indication that the global production figures are going to be looking good going forward. If it's cheap, that can help companies as well. But I think this isn't going to stay down here for very long because the market looks so bullish. Some good tech stocks moving higher. Before we get to Bitcoin, let's just have a quick look at interest rates. Short-term interest rates, 6 months money is still under downward pressure. So we're looking here at a current price of 4.7% when interest rates are 5.25 to 5.5%. So there's got to be a shift there. And even 2-year money trading at 4% is saying that short-term rates are way off. And 10-year money trading even lower at 3.78. Could be, are interest rates going to shift that much lower that quickly? Possibly, but if that happens, this is going to be extremely bullish. Now, that is starting to worry the dollar traders. You can see this developing move. We talked about it many times, but especially in the last few weeks, because there were some significant signals that this was ready to accelerate. And it's now breaking to the downside, getting close to this 100 level, big psychological level. And when we look at a trend, we mean a trend from like 114 all the way down to 100. 14 big figures off 100 would be, for the markets, absolutely massive. So if it comes down to this breakout point at 94, now you can see this chart here. This is where I was bullish on the dollar. This is where I was predicting the dollar would go higher. And so it's not like I always have the same view. When the markets change, I will change with the market. But it's just since this top, that was where I turned bearish, and it went down a lot, but then went into this consolidation. So this for me is a really big signal. The fact that it's so close to the support could really push the asset markets higher in a way that people just aren't expecting. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin, not a lot to see here, but the headline is that it's rejected this move lower. If I move to a daily chart, just 1 second, just give you a daily chart so you can see a bit of fine detail. It rejected the move below 53,000, and it's been in this consolidation, which are always hard to trade. Short-term traders will have a problem. Long-term traders get bored and they'll jump out and they'll expect nothing to happen. But this is quite a nice little compression, and it wouldn't surprise me to see it close over 61,500, which is this area here. If we get close over there, I think it could start testing these levels up at 70. And if it, who knows how quickly that could happen. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to happen, but when these moves start to kick off, they snowball. And this is a nice compression from which a breakout is very possible. It's this sort of compressed triangular pattern that you get that sort of move. So this is looking like it wants to break higher. We can see on volume and all sorts of other measures that there was a big panic here. if we put that together with the sentiment, we put that together with we're nearing the end of August, volume's going to start to increase as we get into September. There could be a few people chasing the market higher.
And we always see that, funny enough, when it does break up. I remember this meme that I saw after the 2017 bull run, and Bitcoin went to like almost 20,000. And then it had pulled back to about 4,000, at one point 3,800. And the meme showed a line of people wrapping around the building to buy Bitcoin at $20,000. But there being nobody in line to buy it at 3,800. And it's funny how it works that way. Intuitively, we know, okay, I want to make money in investments. So in order to make money, I need to buy low and sell high. Yet our hardwiring as human beings has us do the opposite. We're most bullish and get most creative on finding money to pull in from every other source when projects like Bitcoin are at all-time highs because, mostly it's because of recency bias. What has been happening, we feel like will continue to happen. On the downside, when things have been going down, it feels like what has been happening is exactly what's going to continue to happen. And that is exactly what people are feeling like now. Bitcoin broke to 75,000. It's been pulling back, and it feels like what has been happening is going to continue to happen for forever. And it's not. We're seeing the setup here that Bitcoin's trading sideways, and it is going to break to the upside at some point probably in the near future, because sentiment is so bearish right now. That's usually a sign that it's finally ready to rip. And when it does, then everybody flips bullish, and then they're buying in new highs usually. Now that's a little what's going on Bitcoin. Interesting. Finally, I mean, we've been watching the dollar price for forever and interest rates for forever. And when interest rates finally start coming down, that's when money goes into risk on assets. And it seems like we're ready for that. And we're seeing the interest rates have started coming down significantly.
Yeah, long-term money's become cheaper, which is good for companies. It's good for their ability to borrow. And I think it could surprise people quite how far this currency move could go and what impact it will have broadly on the asset markets. It's not like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ has been in a sideways range waiting for interest rates to go lower anyway. They've been doing extremely well with what were considered to be high interest rates in the US. So can you imagine what's going to happen if the dollar goes down a lot? And those asset markets are important because it is when everyone's value of their pension goes higher, their stock holdings go higher. You guys got something called a 401k, but we've got something called a self-invested pension plan. All those things, when they're doing extremely well, people will take other risks. But at the same time, there is more innovation going on in this space. It's maturing in the same way I feel that .com stocks were in, say, 1998, 1999 towards 2000. And it was in that sort of turn of the century period where things went from good ideas to let's just buy everything because the space is going to suddenly change the world. And then you just get this gold rush of everyone buying everything. Now, that doesn't mean every project's necessarily going to do well. And some of it is a marketing story and how well you market yourselves. But in the long term, there will be projects that will come out of that shakeout. Well, first of all, they will go up a hell of a lot from here. And then once there is the correction, they'll survive the shakeout because they'll be good businesses. But I don't think we've seen the bull market yet. Is that's the point I'm trying to make. These moves could look quite small compared to what's coming next.
They often do. It's funny in the charts because when the major part of the bull run happens, it's so huge that it just makes all the early runs look tiny in comparison. And that's kind of where we are. Like Bitcoin has run to, 75,000. I suspect in this coming bull run, it runs to 140 up to $500,000. So all these early moves will just look tiny compared to it. Some of the altcoins that we're looking at are going to go 100x, 500x, or 1,000x. And so the moves it's made to this point will seem infinitesimally small. Let's take a look. There have been a few projects that have taken off kind of under the radar this last week. Let's look at the first one of the suggestions for today.
Yeah, is that that's Aave, right?
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. So Aave, right, very interesting chart setup here. This is where I get excited. We've got volume going up. We've got a rush on a breakout, and the market is heading towards significant highs. So if it takes this high out here, this was the high on the 24th of March. Previously, we'd have to go back towards May 22nd for it to have tested that level. And then it would look as though this is all a base or base in price action. So this is the sort of trade that I would take ahead of a breakout, because once it's broken out, it should trend much higher, much quicker. Now, it's safer to wait for it to actually break out. So if I was to say, cautiously what I would do, I would wait. So this is still a wait, but it's a really interesting market that I think you should be checking it every day to see what it's doing, because it's so close. Although what $136 compared to 151 doesn't seem like it's close, but when it's moving at $10 or $15 a day, it is close from a momentum price action perspective. But again, this is where price analysis is very different to the sort of momentum and short-term moving averages and oscillators analysis, because the oscillators won't necessarily pick it up. The moving averages may not necessarily pick it up, but the price action is showing some form of acceleration and some unusual buying, shall we say. And it's not going to take much for it to breach some significant levels. So this makes me think this is ready to go. And if it is, this all becomes a base, and we could be looking at much, definitely more significant levels from here. Now, to be fair, it has also underperformed for a very long time. So anyone who's got this or had this and given up on it, you can pretty much understand why they would have done that if they'd moved into other projects. So you would have needed a lot of patience. And we did have something similar to that in March 24 when it broke out. And I would have got excited then. And this is the thing with technicals. You can get it wrong a couple of times, a couple of false starts, and it consolidates, comes off again. And then you get one where it goes up a hell of a lot. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for that breakout that then gets sustained. Perhaps the time is right for it now. But I never say that I know anything 100%, because it's always a probability. But on this, I would say, for me, it's very much an interesting project. I would class it as a wait, but I would, if it moves up just any more from here, I think it would become a buy. And it's very close to buy. I mean, if I was being a little frivolous, which you shouldn't really do, which is why I'm kind of backing away from it a little bit. You just say, "Oh, I'll just buy it and see what happens." But I'm going to play slightly more cautious and say, yeah, let's see if it can get within a couple of percent of, or just like say 147, 146 dollars. And if it gets there, then we'll say, look, it's close enough for it to indicate it wants to break out. So we'll say it's a buy. But definitely a good one to watch. Great that somebody suggested this, because I would be really annoyed if in a couple of weeks' time we're looking at $181 and thinking, oh no, we missed that move at 150, breakout $150 because we didn't see it. So well done for putting that on the list.
Yeah, I want to give some context to Aave. Aave is the lead project in the DeFi narrative, and the DeFi narrative has not run in forever. Now, Aave's price history only goes back on these charts to October of 2020. there was quite a massive run prior to this. Now, DeFi was a new area nobody had really thought of, and it really ran in June of 2020. So these charts don't even show it. Even Coin Market Cap doesn't even show it. Here shows it at $52. It was at one point like 1 or 2 cents. And so even by this time, it had gone up massively, later going up to, gosh, like $500 range. Can you imagine had you bought it at 1 or 2 cents and it goes to $500? That's quite a run. But what goes up massively does go down and has a big pullback, right? And we've seen that, not only a big pullback, but a long pullback. And DeFi has been solidly out of the crypto narrative since really early in the year 2021. So it peaked in February, is what it's showing here, of 2021, and has since been on this long retracement. Goodness. So that was what, 3.5 years ago that it last run. So it might be ready for a run. Now, one of the cool things is if DeFi is ready to run, that is good news for projects like Definity and Bumper and some of the other ones that we've been watching. So watch Aave really closely. It's a leading indicator on what might be happening. Now, am I buying Aave itself? No, its market cap is too high. I'm in riskier projects. That if Aave does well, some of these riskier projects will do really, really well. Now, Aave is solidly in the blue chip category. Blue chips are great for those that already have tens of millions of dollars and they want to take more safe bets while still be able to get massive gains because they have so much capital to invest. Cool. I'm trying to grow wealth, and so I'm in riskier projects that have higher potential returns, but also higher potential to fail. So I'm not personally buying this one. Chart looks really interesting. I would be waiting too, even if I was going to buy this, just to see, does it come back down or does it break to the upside and get ready to run? Because if so, then I would take a position and I would take some of that upside run. Let's take a look at our next one, which is Matic. And Matic has been retracing for forever.
Yeah, Matic. I've always liked Matic, and the problem with liking something is you can get emotionally tied to it, and I don't want to be emotionally tied to something. I want it to be justified on a technical basis. During the retracements, it held up really well, but then it started to weaken in a way that was non-correlated, and it has been under a lot of pressure and testing some really significant support recently. 31 cents was a line in the sand that you really did not want to see it below there. And thankfully, we've got a reaction to that, i.e., it looked like we had a spike sell-off. And do you remember last week, maybe the week before, we talked about a couple of coins that had made this spike sell-off. And I was saying that was the first step to it recovering. The bigger the spike, usually the bigger the indicator that it's near the end. Now, just because it's spiked down, it doesn't guarantee that that's the end of the trend. It's just that the probability increases, all things being equal, when you're looking at the macro scene as well. So it's had a nice recovery. Percentage terms, this is a really big move. It's a massive move. If we put it on a log scale, it actually shows you that this has moved a very decent amount for those willing to jump in to buy against that potential support here around 30. But that wouldn't have been me, because I don't tend to do that, even though that can work very well. I prefer to wait for a safer trend to develop and then jump aboard that. And that can often mean they move quite significantly away from the lows, but it's a safer move because it's a more powerful trend. Now, if we take a step back and look at how it's performed when we go back to 2021, again, this is why I've always kind of liked Matic. We have got some longer term data here, and I put these lines in some time ago as a triangular constriction, which is usually an indication that the market's going to constrict into a tight pattern and then break out to the upside. It did break out to the upside, but then it came back in and then it broke to the downside, which negated that. But if we do take a step back, we can see that the real buying happened around 4 cents, and it's not come back to these levels. It's not been retracing as far as some of the other markets have. So it's always been of interest for me because of that. Again, if I was to put my bullish hat on, I would say, this is a really great sign that it's done this and we're ready to turn, and I could jump in and buy it. Again, I'm going to be slightly cautious and say I want to see a bit more evidence, because this downward trend, even the short-term downward trend from the 24th of March, although it spiked, I'd still like to see a little bit more evidence that things are turning. And even if that means a move into around 64 cents, and it crossing through its 200-day moving average, which is a bit higher, around 74. But I would have sympathy with a range trading strategy, which says, well, look, this is the bottom of the range, this is the top of the range, let's buy it here, and we can think about exiting on a short-term basis. I think that's what traders are doing here, so it could have a very decent move. But I'm looking for a move all the way up to this $287 and above. So there's plenty of time for me to jump aboard, even if I was waiting as far as a break of $1.30, which seems crazy to some people. But in terms of technicals, it's just the significance of taking out a very important level and the future implications of that. So, in other words, if I buy at 129, 130 on a breakout, looking for 287 and beyond, that if it does eventually trade all the way up here, that move would look fairly insignificant. So I personally don't need to jump in until the trend is established. But that's not to say that this is a really good point where we are now that is worth testing the water and buying some. So I'm going to say it's the way, but I do think it's a very interesting project. I think there's some great history on it, and it does look like it's responding now. So anyone who's thinking of jumping in now, I can see why they might want to do that.
Yeah, I like Polygon a lot. Now, I remember the history on Polygon. I remember people thinking Matic, as it was called at the time before they rebranded the name, was dead, and that it was never going to make it, and the team had made too many failures and nothing was ever going to happen. And then suddenly it did, and it went about 250x up from the bottoms. In fact, up more from that, from their true bottoms. It went about 500x, a little over 500x. So, I mean, this is the kind of craziness you can see in some of the riskier projects when they really hit. Now, is Polygon that risky anymore? No, solidly in the blue chip category, and that doesn't mean it can't fail. It can fail, but the likelihood is much less than it was in the early days, because they've got a ton of traction, a ton of adoption, a ton of things built on it. Which the downside of that is it doesn't have as much potential upside, but it is at a almost $5 billion market cap. Where can something like this go during a bull market? We can go to a $50 billion market cap, maybe a $100 billion market cap. So it might have 10x or 20x potential. But the reason I'm keeping an eye on it is because it is turning around from its recent bottom. Gosh, I have the hiccups and they're driving me crazy. So it is interesting. We did talk about this when they had that spike low, and this was one of the ones we looked at. And sometimes they turn around after this big stake in the ground is kind of what it is. You see that here, big stake in the ground, then turned around. It is scary to buy there because you just don't know how low it's going to go. But it's on this low, about 60% up. Anyway, one to keep an eye on. Matic, am I buying it? Nope. Too high of a market cap already. I'm in the riskier projects. Let's take a look at a project I haven't much thought about in forever, and it's called Tron.
Yeah, Tron. This is a great breakout. This is a lovely trend. And I'd like to have seen it, of course, a few weeks ago. Would have been great, because we got that spike here. We got these rising lows. We got this resistance point. You know, as I was saying, when a market approaches these resistance points, that's when I get excited. Now you can wait for a breakout, which is the safest thing to do, but this is the sort of move I'd expect to see on a breakout that's good volume as well. But of course, if I'm buying it at 16 cents when I could have been buying it at, say, 14 or maybe a bit before. But the breakout point was at 14 cents, and that's where technically it was a buy, and that's where I would buy, or even just slightly before. See, if I bought it here and done that, the risk is that it retraces, it's not ready to go. Then that's what I was saying before about sometimes things don't work with technicals, and you have to then wait for another go. But when it goes a lot. Now, there's some good history here to show that the pressure was to the upside. The trend has been to the upside. We've got prior resistance here, and then we've got the all-time high here from long history. So this is one where we've got some data that's going back, quite some time. Actually, it's not an all-time high because we've got a 30 cents that occurred in Jan 18. But I like the fact that it's got a lot of history here. I like the fact that this is all curving to the upside and accelerating. So this really could be part of a much bigger move. 17 cents is the pressure point. I'd like to see how it reacts there. But ultimately, if it's going to be part of the bull market, is this an early breakout? Things can break out too early, and then they get sold in, and other projects get bought. So it's like, when you see these runners doing the 800 meters, and one of them breaks out and tries to sprint, and the other runners are like, "Should we go with him, or should we hang back and wait until he sort of runs himself out of puff?" And so this is what I'm thinking here: has this broken too early, and will it retrace? Or is this market leader and indicating what everything else is going to do? I think where we are in the markets at the moment, it's more likely to be the latter, i.e., I think this is an indication that things are starting to get far more interesting in the whole space, and this could be the start of a much bigger move. So I'm going to say it's a buy for me. As I would like to have bought it on this breakout point, but you can't have everything. And the difference between 14 and 16 cents, percentage terms here, it is obviously big, but in actuality, it's not that bad. And again, 17 cents, nearly 18 cents is where the big resistance is. So we do still need to see a reaction there. So testing buy here and then adding to it if it breaks through this 17 cents level would be how I would view it. But really great one. And it's nice to see such a positive breakout.
Yeah, bro was saying that the Tron breakout was fueled by the release of a meme launch pad. That's interesting.
Oh, no.
Right. Yeah, we'll see if it sustains. Overall, several of the blue chips really get some momentum, which could be a sign that the market is turning around, because Tron isn't the only one. In fact, every one of these. So Tron, we've got Aave, we've got Matic, all turning bullish in the charts. Now, a little bit of history on Tron. I had a really important lesson that I learned from Tron. I came into crypto right about this point. This is October 2017, I guess, for those. So this is where Tron was at when I came in, and I didn't know about Tron. I was like drinking from the fire hose, trying to catch up and learn what was going on with crypto. And then all of a sudden, Tron broke out and went massively to the upside here, all the way to about 30 cents. And I remember this guy had made a video on how he bought Tron way back in like 2016. And guess where he held his Tron to? All the way till November 2017. and he sold his Tron here at about a break even right before it took off. And I thought, why would he have done that? That's so crazy. He held it, something that then went so massive, all the way right up into the point where just before it broke out, I don't get why anybody would do that. Well, now that I've been in crypto for 7 years, I see that happen over and over again. And the reason he did is because he sold what was boring to roll it into where the action was. So he sold it here to roll it into some other things that had already been moving. And he caught a tiny bit of upside gain there. And then he caught the retracement on those things. Meanwhile, the position he had taken when it was boring, font was ready to rumble and rock, and he missed out on all of that. After being patient for a whole year, he sold it because nothing was happening there, and he chased into green candles and missed out on the big upside gain on Tron. I've seen people do that over and over and over again in the space. Randy Chavez jumping in. What's up, brother? Good to have you here. All right, let's take a look. So that's Tron now. Am I buying Tron? Tron is solidly in the blue chip category at 14 billion. I don't know. Tron will probably do well during this coming bull run. Will Tron be around long term? I don't know that there's enough development on it. One of the things that Tron really did right was they built USDT so that the stablecoin USDT could be on Tron, and that became used more than any other form of tether. So most of the time when I was sending USDT, I was sending on the Tron network because the fees were so cheap, and that has kept it around. I don't know that really development is going on with Tron for the long term, but still, they say a rising tide rises all boats. I imagine Tron will do quite well. Just not compared to some of the riskier things I'm in. So I'm taking riskier bets that have a bigger potential upside if the general market takes off. So for me, it's not a buy, even though I like where it is on the charts. And I like what's happening there. I mean, look at that. General uptrend here, testing its previous highs, probably ready to run. Cool. Let's take a look at OMI.
Okay. Right. So OMI, you won't be surprised to hear my view. Let me just change this to, got 2 decimals. That should be default. So we get all the figures. You won't be surprised to hear I haven't really changed my view. The trend is still down. There are some signs of life here at 3 zeros, 38.10. Nice that it's bounced. It has made a new low and bounced into it. Very short term, we have still got this pattern of lower highs, which started from here, but this is how it's bunched, and this is how it's going to tell us when things have changed, i.e., we should be at the very least able to take out some of this resistance in order to show that the market wants to turn. The big level is all the way up here, and we've been moving away from that. Yeah, it chewed it for a while. We thought that might be a sign of a reversal. Wasn't to be. It's still trading below these levels. I know it's considered to be by some a fantastic buying opportunity, and I can understand that the fundamentals obviously haven't kicked in as yet. But technically, it's still in a downward trend, and I have to wait. So I realize it could be a fantastic opportunity for someone else, but for me, I've got to see some evidence that this trend has ended. And there's a small chance that it has, just because we're seeing a couple of green bars that are sitting within this consolidation. Now, why would that be significant? It could be because the market's traded into a new low, and then it's snapped back up. So a new low is always a sell signal in terms of following the trend. So traders who have sold short at this 3886 level are now sitting on a small loss. So if they can squeeze those short positions through this 44 level, that to me would be a really interesting sign. And there's some clustering of resistance around there too. But we're looking at fine detail for something that is in a more smooth downward trend at the moment. So I'd like to see something more aggressive, really big green bar that's saying, right, that's it, we're jumping in, it's gone low enough to show that the dynamics have changed from a bear market to a bull market. So for me, it's still a wait, but definitely one that I respect other people's views on it. So it's always got to be, it's one that I check every day or at least every other day just to see whether something has changed, because I don't want to see this run and I don't want to miss it when the technicals change. So yeah, good that we look at it, but that's the technical position at the moment.
Yeah, agree. The technical position on this looks scary, right? So in fact, when it was in this consolidation pattern, I said that there was a 2/3 chance it would break to the downside. That is what happened. And now it's gotten really cheap. Now, from a technical standpoint, I can't look at this chart and say that it's a buy. From a fundamental standpoint, I love it at this price. Now, fundamentally, I track what the project is doing, what narrative are they in, where are we at in the greater crypto space, in the greater 4-year cycle. And we're in a very good place of the greater 4-year cycle to be stocking up on things that I think are massively undervalued. Now, to decide if something's massively undervalued, you got to look deeper at who is the company behind it, what are they doing, what narrative are they in, what is the market cap of the project, what could the market cap go. So there's a lot of variables there, all of which I really like with OMI, and I called this my number 2 most undervalued altcoin, figuring in what is the potential upside versus what is the risk that it fails from now until the coming bull market. And it's the only altcoin that if I were forced to just take one pick, just one, that I would go into. Now, I don't just ever go into one pick. I like diversification. And there's a number of reasons, but if I were to go all in on one coin, this would be it. And of course, many people right now are just bearish as could be on this project, and they're just certain it's dead and it's not going to survive. And they call me a moon boy, and they call Randy, one of my good friends, a moon boy. We're just delusional. Cool. We're going to see who's right on that. I don't feel worried at all. Now, there are some reasons why this company could fail coming up. World War III is one of them. EMP war across the whole world is one of them. But in those cases, like, we're concerned about how in the world are we going to feed ourselves for the next year. So there's bigger problems to worry about in those cases. Other than that, is this company going to fail? Well, I guess if the founders of the project are on a plane together and it crashes, maybe it could. Or some major scandal breaks out that's like, oh my gosh, that changes our perception on who the founder is. All of the FUD that's out there right now, I'm not concerned about. But I've been in not just crypto. I've been in crypto for 7 years, but in the investing space for 25 years now. And what I've seen is, like, at the bottom is when everybody is always freaking out and the FUD is at the highest. And, oh, the project team's so dumb and they made so many mistakes the company can't recover. And that was said about Amazon at its lows. That was said about every major crypto project that has since hit something high. In fact, we looked at Aave earlier. The FUD on ETHLend was completely palpable, and everyone was certain it was going to fail before it went 500x. So I'm not worried by any of the information I've seen on Ecomi and any of the FUD that I've seen out there. Now, maybe there's something like, oh my gosh, the founders were involved in some sex trafficking ring. That would be crazy. That would be very bad. Of course, that could be said for any crypto project out there. I can't imagine that would ever be the case with this project, but who knows? So realize there's always a potential the project fails, but barring something like that, I just don't see why it fails from here. So that when I'm looking to accumulate cheap, well, this is what cheap looks like. And what cheap feels like is scary as hell to buy. Now, I just accumulated 35 million more. I have some more money that I freed up. I'll probably be buying some more. These prices are incredible. This is a gift. For me, it's absolutely a buy, but not based on the technical charts. The technical charts, there's not, it really confirms the price has turned around from here. It's just straight on a fundamental level of my research on the project that tells me, man, this is really cheap and it could get even cheaper. Cool. If so, great. And if not, that's okay too. All right. Let's take a look at Bumper.
Yeah, just to address Bro Hooks's comment about I feel bad for Paul being positively negative on. I mean, no need to worry about me. At the heart of my analysis, I am a contrarian, so I love the fact that you know the market has got almost quite angry at people for liking OMI. So I'm just wondering, you know, when the sentiment will kick in and hit a saturation point. But yeah, it's you know, the chart is the chart, and I'm kind of used to just letting the chart tell me where the market wants to go. But it would I'd be very happy to see it suddenly turn around for lots of reasons. But one is a sentiment reason, because I do like to be a contrarian, and that's the single most long-term strategy that will, I think, always stand you in good stead. But how you define that is also another matter. And I haven't looked into the fundamentals, so I can't confirm, but I do, you know, trust what I'm hearing. In terms of Bumper, we had discussed this in the last two sessions, and for me, it was definitely a wait. And I was just saying that I have, knowing what space it's in, again, even though I do look at the markets from a technical point of view, I would have thought this sort of volatility was ideal for the sort of protection that the offering has got. Now, a marketing problem is something I can completely understand. It could be going on here because, you know, some fantastic projects that you've got some really smart people, really great idea, really great future potential, and likely to make a lot of money. Yet the market is just totally ignoring it. It happens in the equity space as well, where you get what's called value stocks. These stocks can be paying out a huge dividend, and because they haven't got AI attached to them, nobody cares. But they're throwing off all sorts of fantastic numbers, and their stock price is just languishing or even going down, and it makes no sense. And you think the market's efficient. Sometimes it just proves that it isn't. Really, it's just so sentiment driven. And this could be the problem here with Bumper. Now, it is consolidating almost to the penny near its prior low from 2022. So it has reacted. We've got a small reaction here, which is a relief that it hasn't broken through, but it's not done enough to turn this trend around for me to turn bullish. But yes, step one, let's see some positive candles that indicate that the trend is turning. Step two, let's take some resistance out at around 2.5 cents. I think that would be a good point for me to jump in with a small position. And it would also indicate that this downward trend here has broken, but we still got another one that comes in from this point from here to here. That needs to go as well before we can start saying that we're out in the woods. So I think we're still in the woods at the moment, which means that we've got to trade this cautiously. It has gone through every support level and stayed fairly weak at those points. It's just this final one, it seems to have woken up against. And perhaps that's exactly what's happening with the market. The volatility has been good for them, and maybe their numbers are going to look much better than people expect. So it'd be a good time for things to turn around. But I need to see a little bit more from a technical point of view. So for me, it's a wait, but we will keep looking at it. So I'm sure we're going to catch the breakout that indicates we've hit the low.
Look at all that volume. since March. That's crazy, the pickup in volume there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that can work as a positive and a negative. If the volume's going up when the market's going down, that's not such a great sign. What you actually want to see when the trend is ending, that the volume's tailing off a little bit, and it has actually tailed off somewhat in this last part, which could mean saturation of selling. But for the moment, yeah, I mean that is interesting. I'm not sure what was quite behind that, but if we see that those sorts of volume jumps when the market goes up, that is a good indication that the trend has turned.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's behind that either. You can see in this chart the volume increase is the prices going down, and sometimes that's just people panicking out. They have had staking rewards that maybe people are selling off their staking rewards just to cash in and get some liquidity. I'm not sure, but I am sure I really like this price. I like buying cheap. Now, the question in buying cheap is, in the future, is it going to be higher? And that's a guess that you're making as an investor. We don't have magic crystal balls. We can't see the future. We don't have a time machine to be able to go forward in the future and then see what did well and then come back. So we have to make educated guesses. Now, my educated guess on this is the team behind it, what they're doing is innovative, and that frequently will lead to things turning around when money comes into the market. And so I like to buy cheap and hope that it goes higher. It is dirt cheap right now at a market cap of $4 million. Looks like 80% of their tokens are in circulation now. So most of the tokens are now in circulation. The price is dirt cheap. I own a huge amount of Bumper myself. And so I'm looking forward to this one and seeing how it plays out. Done a lot of interviews with the team. I think this one is strong. And if Aave does take off and DeFi's narrative is ready to hit again, well, Bumper is squarely in the DeFi narrative, and that could be really good for Bumper. We did have a question on, it was a good question because this does happen. Does Dfinity ever get mistaken as Dfinity or Internet Computer Protocol? Yeah, I've seen that a number of times when I go to cover it, that people mistake the two. You ever see that, Paul?
Yeah, I do. I don't know really, because I don't make that mistake. I think that's a question for the other people, but I can understand it. Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe someday DEFX will have a higher market cap than ICP.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that everyone will be mistaking ICP for DEFX.
Exactly.
My is staked. I have half my bump staked, and I'm getting crazy good staking rewards. All right. Let's see. Was there any other ones that came in? SHOPX. We haven't looked.
SHOPX.
So let's definitely look at SHOPX.
Yeah, just for those who may have been just joining us, Jay's got hiccups. It's not your internet connection coming in. I thought it was mine at one point, but he's battling through, which is very admirable.
These hiccups are killing me too. They're attacking me with Tron.
Yeah, that must be hard. So yeah, unfortunately, SHOPX, from being, I love this pattern here when it was looking like a head and shoulders base. That's a classic technical pattern, and then it just didn't come off. And as I've said before, some of them don't. And the discipline with technicals is when the market is set up, ready to go, you can't get your buy signal and it just flies. And sometimes, it just doesn't, and you have to learn when to hold them and when to fold them. And this is one that needed to be folded. You could have given it a bit of room. When that's the trouble, how much room do you give it? That's why I always like to have a parachute level. But it's accelerated to the downside, and certainly anyone who's bought at these levels on a technical trade, you wouldn't be holding them, especially when it's gone through the absolute low. Now, all of that said, this sign that maybe the market has panicked into this low, and we've got a spike low. It's not the biggest one I've seen. It's not the strongest, but it is there. We see this like spike down, and then the market's recovering here. Maybe that's the sign that this is over, that the trend is finally going to turn. So a very small sort of coffee money position, perhaps you could justify that, but no more for me, because this is not something I normally catch in terms of a falling knife or falling safe, as we say. The markets don't catch a falling safe, because it will go much lower. There has to be technical justification. I could squeeze in a justification that this is a spike. So therefore, from a neutral position, a small buy, and we'll see how it goes. But certainly I wouldn't be putting serious money into it at this point for me, because I want to see the opposite. I want to see it breaking a new high. I want this flipped around the other way. So it's breaking out through this 4 cents level and moving higher. And I'm adding to that position rather than trying to catch something that's falling lower. As I say, with technicals, that's all I'm looking at, just price action. So I have to see some stability there before I can step in and buy. So for the moment, it's a very cautious coffee money, almost casino type red or black buy, but nothing more. But it's good that you remind us of these projects, because again, I wouldn't want to see this turning around aggressively and not having had the opportunity to review it. So I appreciate that you bring these up, even when they're going down. It's a good indicator. And this could tell us that the bull market is starting in earnest when these sorts of coins are reversing and we see some solid buying. It is important to look at absolutely everything. So, so thanks for mentioning it. But for me, it's a wait.
Yeah. For me, it's a wait too. I have a position in SHOPX that's just sitting there and it's languishing. Now, I'm not seeing enough from the team that I'm not adding into my position here. I love buying cheap, but I have to have a solid feeling that the team is building something I believe in. And I'm not certain about this. I would love to have really good information and that the team is doing something incredible and have a good reason to believe it'll pop out of this, because that's really cheap. $1.7 million market cap. 95% of their tokens are in circulation. I love that price if the project is doing something, and I don't know that it is. I had the CEO on like a year and a half ago, and then I was like, okay, the interview was okay, but I was like, I don't know that his vision is grand enough for the future. I was like, so we'll see. I don't sell when it's already down so low. I just hold it, and sometimes that's paid off for me really, really well. And sometimes the token is then gone to zero. I don't think this will go to zero. It survived this long. It'll probably survive into the coming bull run. And then everything seems to fly in the blow off top of the bull run. So we'll see how this plays out. I'm just holding on to it. Cool. Well, I think that's all we have for today. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's always a pleasure. And thank you guys for being here on this quiet August Wednesday. I think these are the guys who are going to be doing so well when things really start to run, because it's all about consistency, isn't it? So thank you, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
We will see that the market does turn around and it goes absolutely crazy. And all these new people will come in and they will say, oh, man, I wish I was around in August of 2024. I wish I was around in March of 2024. I wish I was around then and I would have been buying so much. And the truth is they wouldn't have been. In fact, most people who are aware of crypto and that we're around to this point aren't buying now because they've just gotten washed out emotionally. They can't buy cheap. It is hard, and you have to be completely contrarian to be buying when prices are way down, because sentiment is also way, way down. And to counter trade that takes balls of steel. And a lot of people don't have them. Like a lot of people, crypto, like in theory, people are like, yeah, I want to make tens of millions of dollars in crypto. But they're just not able to be contrarian enough to be able to pull that off. They just don't have the emotional bandwidth to take it. But you're here, and you've shown that you do. And that is quite impressive. If you're here now, you have balls of steel. You have incredible fortitude. And notice how many people have washed out. Most of them. And yet you're here. That says good things about you. Sometime in the coming year, this ride is going to get great. Now, it could even be the coming 3 months that this gets great. I can't say I know. I just know the pendulum swings too far to the upside, then it swings too far to the downside, which is where we've been and what it's felt like. And it's getting ready to swing too far to the upside again. And that ride is one you don't want to miss. We'll see y'all soon.
To the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the bull will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, say the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.